Thanks, Al. Good evening, everyone. Last weekend was a little bit nuts because I'm still catching up. It feels like I'm jet lagged and I've not been anywhere, sort of hungover, and I've not had a drop to drink. Because Rob Wainwright, a good buddy of mine, ex-Scotland rugby captain and British Line, decided and asked if I could help carry the match ball to Twickenham for the Calcutta Cup. And I said, sure, certainly up for that. I was booked for an event en route in Stirling, which seemed a bit of an unnecessary detour. But Rob said that's perfect, 'cause that makes it up to 500 miles, and we'd have 48 hours to do it. So in total, it was 58 hours with 80 minutes of power naps, if you add it all up. And if you remember what it was like Thursday, Friday, it was absolutely brutal. But we raised over 50,000 for Doddy Gump for the motor neuron, research into motor neuron. It was a fabulous / stupid ride. This is kind of where it all started for me in a serious way. I grew up in rural Scotland and I was loving adventure, but mainly because I was homeschooled. I didn't have any grand ambitions to be a professional adventurer. I didn't know what that was. My father still doesn't think it is a job. But that first picture was me pedaling around the world the first time, unsupported, and filming a doc called The Man Who Cycled the World. And it really it made me realize that by going out there and pushing myself on what I never thought I'd be a record breaker. I simply thought that I'd go out there and I thought that the round the world circumnavigation should be the most coveted endurance race out there. I thought it would be like the round the world sailing record. And yet 12 years ago, barely anyone had tried it. The record 12 years ago stood at 276 days. I never want to be unkind about anyone who cycled around the world, Al, but 276 is very, very slow. So I came back, and as you've seen from the last few pictures, decided to leave the bike in the garage and go ocean rowing, mainly because I wanted to join the dots. I'd cycled around the world, and I thought to do the world properly, you've got to cross the Atlantic, the Indian, the Pacific Ocean. So the first sort of apprenticeship in ocean rowing came in the high Arctic. You saw that picture of pulling a boat through the high Arctic and going to cold places. And then I set off in the Atlantic, and it was out there that I discovered that this is not why I did adventure. Now, it's interesting to say that because I always thought as a younger man it was about the physical and the mental and pushing myself and figuring out what I could do. I discounted how important the landscape, the people, the cultures, the slideshow view of the world around me was. And I decided in the middle Atlantic that actually, when it's big waves, little waves, that wasn't enough. That wasn't why I did what I did. And so I emailed Nikki, my wife, and said, I'm not going to take on the 3 great oceans, which was a huge turning point in my obsession. And then a week later, we capsized. So we capsized, spent 14 hours fighting for our lives, and we're very lucky to come home at all. I got married 8 weeks later, which was not a knee-jerk reaction, but that happened straight after nearly dying. And then I spent a couple of years just being a TV presenter, going around the Commonwealth, filming athletes, got to meet the biggest names in sport like Usain Bolt and Sally Pearson. And I enjoyed it, but I was inspired but jealous. I kind of wanted to be doing what they were doing. And in the last 3 years, committed to coming back to pushing myself on a bike. So that first picture you saw there with the pyramids was kind of warm up to the world. The length of Africa, taking the Cairo to Cape Town world record from 59 days down to 41 days. And then the year later, building the plan over that route that you just watched to try and pedal around the planet in less than 80 days. And so very different to the first time round where I was solo, unsupported, living off the kindness of strangers, and really it was about how, where you're going to end up each night and where your next meal is. This time I was going to be averaging 240 miles a day every single day for 2.5 months. So we had a flying start through Europe, 6 countries in 6 days, cleared Moscow by day 8, and then this photograph is taken on day 9. That is Laura, my physio, and Alex, my bike mechanic, rebuilding my teeth at the roadside in Russia after taking a fall. So I had some wobbly and broken teeth, and I fractured my radio head by falling over the bike. By the time we got halfway around, this was touching down in Australia. It was huge relief to get to that. Can you see me in that photograph? Huge relief to get to this part of the world sort of on target, because I thought all the toughest parts would come through Russia, Mongolia, China, all the unknowns through there. But just to prove the plan, to prove that you could actually get out your scratcher at 3:30 in the morning, on the bike at 4, ride 4 times 4-hour sets, average this is not your best day. Riding 240 is not your best day, it is your average day. And after 5 hours sleep, you have to do it again for 2.5 months. So getting halfway around on time gave the team huge confidence, picking up the 1-month record, the most miles cycled in a month. But obviously on the other side of the planet, it's winter. Clearing the length of New Zealand in less than 5 days is brutal. That graveyard shift, 4 till 8 in the morning, all the way through till 10 o'clock, it's still dark. leaving your RV in the morning when it's, -4, -5. But the support, the amount of belief in this project grew and grew and grew. Before I left, there was a lot of rhetoric online and in social media saying how nuts and impossible this was. By the time I was coming across North America, there seemed this unblinking belief that I was just going to do it. Whereas I was at the heart of this, still going, if I fail in any 4-hour block, the whole thing fails. Some pretty tough miles across North America. I'd sort of been looking forward to coming down through the Rockies and then the prairies and up through the Great Lakes and back through to the East Coast. But, psychologically, the sleep deprivation, I was in the toughest place I've ever been on expedition. But phenomenal amount of roadside support, to the point where one lad came out near Toronto and decided the best way to support me was, there was a big sign on the back of his car as I rode up to it saying, "Mark, keep your eyes on the road." I thought, that's weird. And as I cycled past, he ran out wearing a beanie hat. He was absolutely starkers and ran down the side of the road mid-morning, stone cold sober, and decided this was the best way to support the ride. Phenomenal amount of roadside support and a few streakers. Arriving back in Paris, now keep in mind that I'm the one guy that gets 99% of the credit of this. There was 40 people working on this project. It eclipses everything else I've ever done in terms of expeditions and in terms of cost, complexity, the media, the broadcast, and the rest of it. And I stood there with my team, massive team effort, and with the family that now backs me. It's a very different mission when you're 22 years old, straight out of university, and you pedal off around the planet without a care in the world, to being in your 30s, with people that work with you, a young family, a few more responsibilities, and they still back the ambitions. They still give you the love and blessing to get out there and take on your biggest dreams. Because I felt there was unfinished business. I wanted to have one chance to put all my cards on the table and figure out what it would take. And the 80 days was a massive dream. It was a massive dream that a lot of people bought in on. And, by the time I finished and 300,000 people watched it on Facebook Live, it was quite incredible to see how that dream, meant so much to so many others as well. So there you go, around the world twice and a few others adventures. And great to come back and support Alan Hope for Homes. Good stuff. Thank you very much.